In this video, I will review the answers for the Quiz 2 review. The first problem, we have to construct a stem and leaf plot. First, I construct the stems. So I start with the lowest value, which has a stem of 2 and a leaf of 9. So we place the 2 as the starting stem. The highest value is 118. This can be split into a stem of 11 and a leaf of 8. So we list all the numbers from 2 to 11. Remember to list the leaves in numerical order from the lowest to highest value. So the first number is 29. There's no other numbers with stem 2. So we would write it as 2 and a 9. For stem 3, we have to locate all the numbers that are 30s and represent the leaves in numerical order. And we would repeat this process for all the other numbers until we've completed our stem and leaf plot. And we just look for patterns afterwards. In this case, we can see that there's two modes, the 30 and the 60s. For problem 2, we're given a set of numbers and we have to compute the measures of central tendency. The first measure is the mean. To calculate the mean, we add all the values together, 552, and we divide by the total number of values, 14. 552 divided by 14, 39.4. To find the median, we put the numbers in numerical order from lowest to highest. Now, since we have an even number of data values, we pick the two middle values, 32 and 43, and we find the midpoint of those two values. So 42 plus 43 is 75. We divide by 2 to get 37.5. The mode is the data value that occurs the most. In this case, the mode has to be 20 because it has a higher frequency than all the other numbers. And finally, the mid-range is computed by taking the lowest value, 11, adding it to the highest value, 90, and dividing by 2. And that's going to give us 50.5. Our third example is we have to compute the mean for group data and find the modal class. To compute the mean for group data, if we use the formula, we have to find the midpoints. To find the midpoints, we add the lower limit and the upper limit. That's going to give us 44. Divide by 2. The first midpoint is 22. We could then repeat that process, but if you notice, the class width is 45. So we simply just continuously add 45 to generate the other midpoints. Next, we multiply each frequency with each midpoint to develop the last column. 18 times 22 is 396. 13 times 67 is 871, and so on. Finally, we add up the frequencies. That's n. N is 52. And we find the sum of the last column, 5,149. The final step to find the mean for group data is to divide 5,149 by 52. And when we round to one decimal place, it's 99. Another way you could work this out is you can use the graphing calculator. To use the graphing calculator, we press Stat, select Edit. In L1, we list all the midpoints. So 22, 67, and so on. In L2, we list the frequencies. We press Stat again, select Calculate, make sure to select option 1, one variable statistics, hit Enter. The list should have L1. Frequency list should have L2. So we press second 2 to insert L2. Then we go down and calculate, hit Enter. The mean is 99.01. If we round to one decimal place, we get 99. So that's an alternate way of calculating the mean. Finally, the modal class is the class with the highest frequency. The highest frequency is 18, thus the modal class 0 to 44. In our next example, we have to calculate the weighted mean percentage. So our average should be a percentage. The weights will be the people surveyed. We convert all percents to decimals. So 44%, just divide by 100 and drop the percent sign to get 0.44. Repeat that for all the other percents. We then multiply each decimal form of the percent with the numbered survey to find the values in our last column. So 0.44 times 120, 52.8. 0.39 times 95, 37.05. And then just repeat that process. We next find the sum of the weights, 363, the sum of the products, 116.19, and then divide. So the weighted mean is the sum of the last column divided by the sum of the weights. I'm rounding to two decimal places, 0.32. And at the very final step, since we want an answer that's a percentage, we convert the decimal back to a percent. Move the decimal over two spaces, write down the percentage. Now, there is an alternate way to calculate this using the graphing calculator. We press Stat, then make sure number 1 is selected, select Enter. In L1, we want to average the percentages. In this case, I'm just going to type in the percentages without the percent sign. 44, 39, 28, 12, 18. L2, we type in the weights. 120, 95, 45, 80, 23. Next, we press Stat, go to Calculate, select option 1. Make sure we have L1 for the list, L2 for the frequency list. Calculate. The mean is 32.008. This will round to 32%. In problem 5, we need to construct a dot plot. How I build a dot plot is I always begin with the lowest number on the list, 17, and we go to the highest number. I believe it's 26. And then as we count off the values in the list, you place a dot above the number. So we have 20, you would put a dot. 22, put another dot. And then if the numbers repeat, you stack the dots. 18, the second dot is stacked. And then we repeat that process for all the other numbers. The graph gives us a nice view of the distribution of the data values. We can then answer the question. Question A is asking, what's the data value with the highest frequency? That's 18. And then it's asking if it's fairly balanced. It does look somewhat balanced, although we have a large number of individuals who are 18. So it's somewhat balanced. It's not evenly balanced. And the last question is asking us to graph a time series chart. To graph the time series chart, we put the years on the x-axis, or any type of unit of time on the x-axis. In this case, it's years. And we put the rates. So I go by units of 1%. So we have our rates. These are in terms of percentages. So even though it says 3.9, it's actually 3.9%. And then we plot the points. At 2015, the mortgage rate was 3.9%. 2016, 3.7, and so on. After we plot all the points, we then connect them with line segments. And we have the time series chart. Then we could analyze the chart. The year with the lowest rate, 2021. So it appears that the trend for the mortgage rates were that they were decreasing up until around 2021. And then there was a massive increase. And from that point on, it's somewhat stabilized. So that's our trend for the graph of our time series chart. And that concludes our video. Thanks for watching.